Well, good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome from St. Francis Retreat Center here at Mepkin Abbey, and welcome to this episode of Mepkin's Forum for Contemplative Ecology on such a auspicious evening for our country and perhaps even the rest of the world. And so I think we're very fortunate this evening to be able to tap into some ancestral wisdom coming to us from Yona Frenchhawk. And so with that, I will turn it over to Sam and let him introduce our speaker.
Good evening, everybody. It's great to be back for another gathering of the Mepkin Abbey Forum for Contemplative Ecology. It's such a gift to see this community growing outward every month. And we're very blessed this evening to be joined by Yona Frenchhawk, which feels especially important here as we celebrate Native American History Month in November. So we're very excited to hear from Yona, who is an enrolled member of the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians. Born and raised in the Wolftown Village on the Qualla Indian boundary in Cherokee, North Carolina, he and his 8 siblings are of the Bird clan, their mother's clan. And they are recognized as some of the less than 2,000 full bloods remaining. Yona's teacher and grandfather, Ephesus, was a highly respected and sought after shaman and medicine wisdom keeper of the tribe. This wisdom is passed from generation to generation with reverence, respect, and honor, so that our children and grandchildren will prosper and grow the garden of the generations yet to come. Yona is honored and humbled to continue this bridging of the ancient past to the ancient future with love, respect, and honor, and to continue the legacy of the Cherokee. And with that, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to Yona Frenchhawk.
Well, thank you, Sam, and thank you everyone for being here this evening. It's such an honor and it's a very humbling moment for myself, especially for this November month that we're here in the United States. We honor the Native American, the indigenous peoples of this land. And if you will, with that for a moment, if you could just take a moment to just settle yourselves and to take a moment to breathe in and breathe out, to remember why it is that you're here this evening, to reconnect with the source of your intention and your curiosity that the great mystery calls you to, while you continue to show up in this community to offer your energy and your awareness. And what can we do in this moment to further that echo and that vision and that voice that will go into the future, that will be in the wind for our children to hear? Breathe into this moment and know, Creator, that we come in this moment in this awareness, to the awareness of all things of earth and life, that with each and every breath we realize that we are experiencing the miracle of life through sacred reciprocity. With each breath in, we receive the greatness and the goodness and the blessings. And with each breath out, we offer the gratitude and the visions and the hope that come with those gifts. We thank you, Creator, in all things of earth and all things of life, to know that we are honored to be among you. That in this moment we do honor and recognize and receive any wisdom offered to us in this moment, in this evening. Thank you for this gathering. Thank you for all that is happening in this world. Help us to do all that we can to raise the vibration of awareness in our coming together in this moment, to honor all of those that have walked this earth before us, that have given and offered their prayers, and know that we see you and that we honor you, and that we ask that you continue to help us to grow in this way. As one indigenous tribe of this earth, we all look to you for this guidance in a good way, and know that we see you and that we love you and that we honor you. I hope. Well, thank you everyone for being here. And as Sam had mentioned earlier, I am a full-blooded Cherokee of the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians located here in the Smoky Mountains of Western North Carolina. I'm also a minister in a creation spirituality church here in Asheville called Jubilee Community Church, where a lot of the teachings of the creation spirituality tenets of reconnecting with indigenous culture and indigenous teachings are coming back into our awareness of getting back to what we know as simplicity, coming back and reconnecting with nature and that first language of vibration and of wind and water, of learning the different variations of how to communicate with this language being spoken to us. Can we go back and remember in this moment what it's like to understand what it means to watch the wind dance across a still pond of water as the ripples dance, and maybe it's writing a message across the top of the water and the wind is whispering to us. Or maybe some of us are more audio and they hear the whistling of the wind as it goes across the water or through the grass. Imagine what it was like to be a living being in those times when there were no humans and there was no human language. How did nature connect and communicate in that way? And understand that we as human beings were invited into this world with this pre-existing environment that supported our creation. So when we go back and start, at least for me, in my teachings of my grandfather Ephesius, who was a Cherokee shaman, that in some ways worked in darkness and worked in light as well, in our understanding of the coexistence of both. My grandfather was a mystic in many ways. He might have known 10 words of English, but couldn't put a sentence together. Grew up on 300 acres of mountain land in the Smoky Mountains of North Carolina. No running water, no electricity. We'd wake up early in the morning, very simply, he would just wiggle my ear to wake me up. And we just knew that it was time to get up and to get going. There was always a connection to earth and there was always a reverence. Maybe like some of you have your morning disciplines, your morning prayers, or your morning rhythm of whatever you do when you first get up and and take that first gift, that recognition to that first breath of your day. My grandfather would lead us up into the side of the mountain where there were these stones that sit in this creek. And the creek started at the top of the mountain, and it came from this underground lake. And we would put our feet into that water, and my grandfather would sit there silently. And as a little boy, I'd get real anxious. And you know how kids get to, whenever it gets too quiet, you want to say something because there's just too much silence. And every time I would take that breath to say something, my grandfather would put his finger up to shh, and he'd point, just like, listen. So we'd sit there on that rock with our feet in the water on this mountainside and would listen to the sounds of the woods. And after a while, my grandfather would ask me, Yona, what did the woods tell you? Oh, grandfather, I hear the squirrels coming down. The sun's about to go down and the squirrels are coming down the trees to get water because they love their water before they go to bed at night. But they heard something over here. There's something that scares them. And I think maybe it's a bobcat, because the bobcat knows that the squirrels are coming to get water and the bobcat knows where to find squirrels. So there's a dance happening in the woods. And this is how my grandfather taught me to listen to nature. And people ask me, how is it that I learned to tell stories? And I believe these are the very foundational roots of my gift as a storyteller. My grandfather only introduced me to the very first storyteller that we all know. The wind, the leaves, the trees, of how they all work together in unison to bring to life a story that Mother Earth has for each and every one of us. And how, as we become more and more fluent in remembrance of that language, of how we can have that gentle conversation with our Creator. So it's with great honor that I come with you tonight to offer some of where this comes from and some of this so-called great mystery that we're all on this journey, this cosmic journey of discovery and exploration. And again, let's focus back in on why are you here this evening? What draws you here energetically? What is it that is in the cosmos in this moment, in this day, at this time, that calls you to be present in this moment? And then how we take this moment and expand and amplify what we learn here together. And this is how we build community on a global level. This is how we amplify the messages through this mycelial connection, this root connection to Mother Earth and that vibrational language that we all speak. And we bring that to life in those moments, if you will, just to take a moment, if you will, in our Cherokee tradition, we are very, very aware of sitting still in the moment and allowing the vibrations to speak to us. And to sing gently sometimes from our heart what it is that nature is trying to tell us. In our sweat lodge ceremonies, going back into the sweat lodges, going back into the womb of Mother Earth, to be reborn, to remember, to reimagine, to whatever it is that you feel that you need to recreate in your life. But to return back to that dark place of that womb, of that place of safe harbor, and that vibrational language spoken only between a mother and a child, that vibrational language of the heartbeat. My grandfather was always fond of saying, if you have one of these, then we're related. We're all members of the same tribe. So in this time of speaking to those that have come before in this time of Native American History Month, I would really like to honor not only my Indigenous elders, but your elders too, of wherever you come from. Because again, we are all Indigenous people of this earth, regardless of what part of this planet that we come from or what the names are of our tribes, of our deities, our gods. We are all of this earth, and we still hear the same language spoken by the wind. When the earth quakes, we all feel the very same vibrations. But we've all learned a way to interpret those vibrations in that language that's being spoken to us. In those ethers, those vibrational language that's being spoken to us. Those things that might be invisible to the human eye, but are very real in the spirit and the soul. That are so real that the energy takes a place in our heart, and it lives there, and it lives within our spirit and our soul. And that's our connection to nature and Mother Earth. And that's why we as human beings, and so much as a part of water being built up in our bodies, that we respond and amplify the messages being given by nature. And when we show up in places like we do tonight, this is how we find how to grow that garden, how to improve that green thumb ability, or whatever your superpower is, to grow and to learn and to expand. I encourage you in this moment to remind yourself why you're here again. Of what can you contribute? How can you participate in this larger vision of a people, my people, the Cherokee people, of the prophecy of all people coming together to pray as one. So thank you for showing up to encourage and to grow and ignite and to continue to keep that fire alive. So whenever you go out and you offer your prayers and you sing your song, carry this message in your heart so that goes into the wind. Because in our sweat lodge ceremonies, this is what it is about. That vibrational language. When we go back into the sweat lodge, we set up on the earth and we offer the best of our heart and our spirit, and we put our energy down deep into the earth, into the roots of the earth. And the root system, it recognizes the love and the compassion, because it's where we come from the heart of Mother Earth. When we reach down into its origins, it begins to the sacred alchemy of life and magic and medicine, of prayer and vision and hope. They all come together and they meet again in the very heart of Mother Earth, and she sends that message out through the roots and the mycelial connection of Earth. And all of those people out there that might be looking for us, we can be found because we are coming to amplify this voice and this prayer. In the Cherokee tradition, this is how we keep the fire lit. This is how the lighthouse is ignited. This is how we become the beacon for those that may be out there that don't have the privilege to freely pray right now, to freely express what lives inside their heart and their spirit. Places in the world where it's punishable to speak your truth. It's important in our sweat lodge ceremony to be that beacon so that we can put a pathway, at least energetically, for people to release whatever it is they need to let go of there in their life so that they can shine, even in their darkest times. I'm loving the image of one of our attendees sitting in front of her fireplace. I think her name is Anne. And hi, Anne. Thank you for that fire reminder of warmth and what we do and how it catches our eye, even in darkness and even in those moments where we think we might be alone. In the Cherokee tradition, this silence is welcome. In this time in our society where sitting silently in a room full of people may be uncomfortable to some, or the tendency to reach over and check your phone, or to see if you have any messages, or or is the coffee pot still, or whatever it is that we fill our minds with in those moments. How many of us have a daily practice where we sit still and we sit quietly to consciously invite those moments in, like reading lessons or piano lessons? Do we take silence lessons? Becoming fluid again in that very first language that we spoke inside the womb? So as we move forward and as we're in this time of using our free will, and on this auspicious night, the day before this election, and how we are now coming into a larger collective consciousness, how we're coming together as a community in common unity. Let's not get lost on community this and community that, but let's really go back to the origins, the source of what it means to be community, to be in common unity with our environment, to be in common unity with the plant life that feeds us, to be in common unity with the weather that changes and guides the moods and how we walk into the day. Our common unity with our perspective of who we see in the mirror when we look at ourselves. Are we in common unity with the reflection that we see? Are we in balance with ourselves? This tribal connection, however it is, whatever your historical ancestral roots are and your remembrance, you're here to remember too, and to help us remember in this moment. To remember so that we can prepare this seed. Throughout this year, we're getting ready to come to the end of 2024. If you can believe it, it's almost here. But let's reflect back on the last winter, the last January, when we come into beginning to prepare, and in the spring, how we prepared the earth to receive the seeds, and how we nurtured the earth, and how we prepared the earth to receive the seeds that we're planting, and how we identify those seeds that we want to plant in our garden. And in the fall time of how we have harvested that. Imagine to yourself the seeds that you planted. Maybe you made a New Year's resolution, and where are you with that? Where are you with that? Right now, we're in the 11th of 12 months of that cycle. How has that seed grown, and how has it nurtured? Has it blossomed and prospered and bore fruit? And is it time to take seed from those lessons and prepare them for the next season? As we get ready to go into this hibernation time, this darkness, solstice energy of the winter, how is it that we're garnering the lessons from this year, from the seasons that have come before? So to honor all of those that have become before, and that teach us the lessons of the changing of seasons, and how that applies to each and every aspect of our life, of how we grow in a season from being an innocent child to being an adolescent, to being a young adult, to being an adult, to being an adult, to going back to maybe hopefully being a child again. Let's take this same process and apply it to how have we harvested from our life? How have we harvested and nurtured the seed that was given to us as an innocent child when we took that first breath and made the agreement to live this life? And in that moment, we also made the agreement to take the last breath as well. So as we really go back and honor all of those that have come before, just like some of my teachers have told me, the first shaman didn't have a teacher. The first shaman just had to figure it out. And I think that's the beauty of the discovery that we're all on the path of right now, is where are we? Where are we on that path of discovery of who we are and what seed and what fruit that we're bearing for the future? There was a time whenever all the people of the earth used to come out and they would look to the sun. They would look to the sun and give gratitude for its warmth and all that it did to light the day so that they could see. Day after day, they would come out. One day, whenever they come out, they were honoring the sun, the beloved woman of the tribe. In the Cherokee tradition, the women, the beloved woman, is the head chief, the head decider of the tribe. And one day, the beloved woman felt something different in the air. And she turned and looked over her shoulder, and then off in a distance, she saw a young man on all fours praying to the earth. When she saw this, a small tear formed at the corner of her eye. She saw that what was coming. Day after day, the people would come out and raise their hands to the sky to honor the earth. And day after day, the beloved woman would look over, and more people were on all fours praying to the earth. And so many tears were shed that a small stream began to form between the people that prayed to the earth and the people that prayed to the sun. And whenever the elders of the village saw this division, they began to cry and weep as well. And there were so many tears that the stream became a creek, and the creek became a river, and the river became so wide that one tribe could hardly see the other from shore to shore. And in the village of the people that prayed to the sun was a young woman named Nandieli. Every day, Nandieli would go down to the water to fetch the water for her people in whatever way they needed it. She would go down to the river's edge and look to the sky, sing to the wind and appreciate the beauty, appreciate the awe and the strength of the water around her. And one day when she was appreciating the world around her, off in the distance, she saw what she knew to be the most beautiful young man she had ever seen in her life. Her heart cracked open and began to sing a love song. And she asked the wind to take her love song to the young man so that he might know her love. And in the village of the people that prayed to the sun was a young man named Sawasi. Every day, Sawasi would go down to the water to fetch water for his people. Sawasi would go down by the water and appreciate the wind and the beauty. One day, as Sawasi was down by the water, way across the water, he saw what he knew to be the most beautiful young woman he had ever seen. And his heart cracked open and sang a song. And he asked the wind to take his love song to her so that she might know his love. Day after day, Sawasi and Nandieli would come to the water. They would look for one another, and they would open their hearts and they would sing their love songs. Day after day, they would call in love and hope. One day, as they were by the water, the great eagle came. As they were offering their love song, the great eagle came and landed in front of the young woman and handed her an eagle feather. The young woman took the eagle feather and sang her love song and asked the eagle to take her love song to the young man. The eagle easily flew across the river and landed in front of the young man and handed him a feather. The young man received the feather in a good way and offered his song and asked the eagle to sing the song so that the young woman might know his love. And the eagle began to sing the song and lifted up into the air, singing the song of the two young people. And they began to realize that in their hearts, they were singing the same song. And in this moment, they knew that it was time to join their love. And they began to walk into the river together toward one another to join this moment. Putting aside that all their life they had been told that down the river was this waterfall that was certain death if you ever went over the edge of it. And the water was wide and strong and swift. Even knowing this, they knew that the great eagle spirit had come and blessed their love. And it was time to join their love beyond anything else upon this earth. And as they made their way toward one another, they felt the first tugs of fear, of anxiety, of the water pulling them slowly downstream. But they continued to sing their love song because they knew they had been blessed by the Great Spirit. And they trusted and had faith in this love. And they continued to sing their love song as they walked toward one another and began to swim toward one another. And after a while, the people in the village began to wonder where their young children were. They began to wander down by the river. And whenever they saw what was happening, they began to panic and scream and, "Oh, child, come back. You're going down the river. You're going to die. You're going to go over the waterfall. Please, please come back." They wore themselves out with their worry and their fear until they couldn't say anything else. From both sides of the river, both tribes were just pleading with these two young lovers to please, please come back. But the two young lovers knew that their love had been blessed by the Great Spirit. And in the silence, the people heard the song being sung in the wind. They began to understand what was happening, and the beloved woman guided her people to sing, to listen to the song that was in the wind and begin to sing this song of love. And the people began to hear the song and began to sing. And as they began to sing, they felt the energy. And they saw that the river began to narrow as they joined their voices one, singing for love and singing for hope, singing for these two young lovers for life to live and to realize the greatness of what's being given to us. And as both tribes, the people that pray to the sun and the people that pray to the earth, sang the very same song in unison as one voice, the river began to close. And they began to lift their voice up as loud as they could, hoping that they could save this moment and close this divide before these young ones went over the waterfall. But they saw that it was going to be too late. And right before the young couple went over the waterfall, the great eagle came and lifted them up, flew them around the earth, all the way around. And when they came and landed back to where they had begun, the river had disappeared, and the people that prayed to the earth and the people that prayed to the sky had come together again. Brought together by love and hope and faith. And to the Cherokee people, this is how the equator was created on this earth, that line of balance, that line that marks all those things that bring us into harmony and peace. I want to offer you the love song. In this song, we're asking for this love to be recognized and to be honored, for our voices to be heard, for all these things in beauty that separate us from the one love that we call into our lives. We ask in this song that the Creator bring us all back into oneness, to bring us all back into stillness, and to hear our songs. Way, way, oh, way, way, oh, way, oh, hi, oh, hey. Way, oh, way, way, oh, way, way, oh, way, oh, hi, oh, hey. Way, oh, way, oh, hi, oh, hey, ah. Way, oh, way, hi, oh, hey. Way, oh, way, oh, hi, oh, hey. Way, oh, way, oh, hi, oh, hey, ah. Way, oh, hi, oh, hey. Way, way, oh, way, way, oh, way, oh, hi, oh, hey. Way, oh, way, way, oh, way, way, oh, way, oh, hi, oh, hey. Way, oh, way, oh, hi, oh, hey, ah. Way, oh, way, hi, oh, hey. Way, oh, way, oh, hi, oh, hey. Way, oh, way, oh, hi, oh, hey, ah. Way, oh, hi, oh, hey. Mother Earth, don't you cry. We will always be by your side. Way, oh, hi, oh, hey, ah. Mother Earth, can't you see? We will always love you. Way, oh, hi, oh, hey, ah. Way, oh, hi, oh, hey. Way, oh, way, oh, hi, oh, hey. Way, oh, way, oh, hi, oh, hey. Way, oh, hi, oh, hey, ah. Way, oh, hi, oh, hey. Way, oh, hi, oh, hey. Way, oh, hi, oh, hey, ah. Way, oh, hi, oh, hey. Mother Earth, don't you cry. We will always be by your side. Way, oh, hi, oh, hey, ah. Mother Earth, can't you see? We will always love you. Way, oh, hi, oh, hey, ah. Way, oh, hi, oh, hey. And if you will, just take a moment to breathe into that. To breathe into your own memories of love stories that have painted a picture or told a story of your people and your ancestors. To have your heart cracked open by a song of beauty, of witnessing something so great and so awesome that the song has no human words, just a opening of a heart, of a melody that comes from somewhere so deep inside that has no human words. A yearning, a lust, an ancient remembrance, a desire for something so old, a dormant memory being awakened by a heartbeat. This is the ancientness of my people. This is the ancientness of the connection that we try to share with our children. That we ourselves as elders continue to journey into the great mystery of life, to explore the questions that our heart and our soul begs for us to ask and to explore. Open your heart to the love song that will call in the great mystery. Let your heart be cracked open by the awesomeness of the unknown beauty of unanswered prayers and what they blessings that may bring to us. And what a blessing it may be to not know things in life, but to just have trust and faith. And in our Cherokee tradition, this is what we hope to teach our next generation, is to quietly explore faith and trust without fear, without boundaries, without fabled stories of old. To remember the sounds of shooting stars crossing the sky. To remember the whispers of light as it travels to us from billions of years away. The whisperings of the cosmos that call us back home. To express our free will in this time. To raise our voice, to name ourselves, to identify our wishes and our dreams. So that our light will shine for billions of years and be a story for the next generations. So when they look to the sky, they will see us there. And they'll know our story. How are you in this moment? Continue to feel that light that is your heart, that is your spirit and your soul, that will live for eternity. This is what we are teaching our children today. The ABCs of nature. How to read the cursive writing, the wind crossing the top of a still lake of water. Of how to read and feel barefoot upon the earth and the vibrational songs and messages being given to us by Mother. To be inspired by the clouds and the cloud people painting the sky in possible colors and bringing us messages. The cloud people and the thunder beings, the lightning people, coming to nurture us and to quench our thirst for the great mystery of life. There's no school buses required. We don't need any charter schools for it. All we need is the next breath and a deep appreciation for the life that we've been given. And to return to the cathedrals that are nature. To step away from what we know as technology and to aim it in the next direction to where we come back to that stillness of returning to the womb and that innocence that we're all looking for in our life. Turning back to hands of time, if you will. It's all perspective. Whether you're getting older or getting younger, it just depends on which way you're walking. It's up to you. And that's what we're teaching our children. So it's an honor to come and share this with you. To bring some of my Cherokee tradition and some of what people might call wisdom. I just call it remembering growing up. But let's really learn to appreciate in these moments what it's like to return to source, to return to the very tenets of what we know is meditation and silence and stillness and what it brings to our life. The name of your spirits and entities don't have to be the same as mine, but as long as we honor them and respect them and love them, then I believe that that's the common destination, that we're all have our own spiritual GPS. Just like those turtle people out there, whenever they're born on certain shores and they travel thousands of miles away, and then somewhere in the night, this crystal bell sound goes off and they know exactly how to get back home. This internal GPS that we're all given in the beginning of time. And maybe that's what technology is showing us today, of how to remember how to activate that GPS that's leading us back home. Maybe that's the beauty of Google and Google Maps or whatever it is, because to our Cherokee people and to many indigenous cultures, this is how we got the internet, by going into the sweat lodge and the tree people being witness to everything that we do on this earth. And we go into the sweat lodge and we put our energy and prayers into the root system, and that vibration goes into the earth and the roots of the trees. And then the birds land on the limb of the trees, and the vibration story goes into their bodies, and they sing the words and the prayers of the people, and the wind blows, and it's the first Twitter account. That's how Mother Earth taught us to create the internet and to communicate globally. How do you think we got the idea for the internet? How do you think we got the idea to communicate globally and being given the technology and the gifts that we've been given, if they've not been given to us to take us back to where we're trying to journey to? The return to innocence. And to return to remember what that seed is that you're growing in your garden, so that you'll know how to feed your family, so that you'll know how to feed the next generations, so that in 1,000 years, whenever the next generations look at that tree and say, you know what, those apples have been growing for thousands of years and feeding our people. I was in Lebanon last year in Beirut, eating from olive trees that have been feeding their people for thousands of years, year after year. And how the people of that land honor the tree people. They won't cut their olive trees. They'll build around them. They'll walk around them, but they honor the earth and they honor the relationship with their environment. It's like putting a great big old diamond ring on that olive tree and saying, I love you and I'm all yours. And that's what we're teaching our children. That's what we're teaching them in our schools. Remembering our language, our stories. Teaching them how to go out into the forest and pick their own food. How to weave fishnets out of vines. How to honor the earth and do ritual and ceremony. How to be reverent and honorable, how to live an integral life, and how to treat one another with goodness and kindness and love. To us, those are the original ABCs. And so I'm honored to be here with you this evening to share this with you and to be part of this journey that you're on, of your own self-discovery, of how we're bringing more light into our lives. So with that, Sam, I'll hand it back over to you and we'll receive some more guidance, and I'm sure there's more ahead of us.
Well, thank you, Yona, for carrying forth those many streams of inspiration. I think it would be a good time to shift into our small discussion groups in breakout rooms, and to give us a chance to really gestate all the beautiful imagery and stories that you shared with us all. So I'm going to ask our wonderful assistant, Joy, to sort us into breakout rooms for about 10 minutes until 8 p.m. Eastern. And I would invite everybody to take a moment to really listen deeply within to what may have been stirred, what may have moved you, what may be inspiring you from what Yona shared. And then we'll come back about 10 minutes. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you've had a time to unfurl what is coming through from deep within you, from the great source that has been invoked by Yona's message and his beautiful poetic way of transmitting these profound ideas. We'd love to give a chance for folks to offer any reflections from their small group discussions, and also to pose any questions they might have. So feel free to write any thoughts or questions in the chat. You can also do the raised hand function using the react button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Love to hear from Dean.
Thank you, Yona, and thank you, Mepkin. Wow. One thought inspired through, I've been able to participate with a brother from the Kituwa band of Cherokee, and was introduced to a sun salutation ceremony, and remembering the worship of the one behind the sun, and how the worship of anything and the worship of the one behind it all as a reminder of the love that connects all of creation through the creator. I'm really curious from that stance of remembering, especially as I'm teaching my children what I'm teaching them, and how, Yona, how you speak about how we're teaching all of our children, and then Cherokee children. I'm really curious about the temptation to worship anything, forgetting the one behind it all.
Well, I think for us, especially when it comes to the myth and stories of what we call the great mystery and the unspoken name, or that just energy of what is creator, what is God, what is the maker of all of this, what is that cosmic connection, what are the free radicals, the explosions. We're children of chaos, if that's true. If we're born of the stars, there's combustion and explosions and collisions happening, and there's radical things happening all around us, but it creates a certain calmness within it. And to some of our elders, that is some of the division that has manifested itself in our society and the world, is the different sects of religion and beliefs, and the names for gods and the names for entities and saints and this and that and the other, whenever there is just one great energy that drives it all, that is that core source of. And if I knew it, I'd write a book and probably make a lot of money. But we all have this common destination, I believe, that is inward, that is that cell of curiosity. And it's that curiosity that keeps us on this continuous journey of growth and expansion and evolution. And if we were ever to really understand it, then maybe we could go create our own universe. Or maybe it just stops. I don't know. But what is that, when we reach that, what is the final destination? When people say, we're heading to the final destination, please tell me where that is and what it feels like. How much gas do I need? How long do I need to live to get there? So yeah, it can be forgotten because there is so much unknown in the great mystery, and that's the beauty of it, is that we can define it with our free will. And in this season where we get to express ourselves to help shape the future, then I believe that's where we really come back into the balance of the unknown and being in harmony with not knowing.
Thank you, Yona. We have a question in the chat before we move to Father Garrick from Martha Kane, who asks, how did you and your people fare in the wake of Hurricane Helene? How was your
Well, in Cherokee, I live in Asheville, North Carolina, which got the brunt of the hurricane. My Cherokee is actually an hour from here, across the mountain. They had some flooding, but all of Western North Carolina, for the most part, experienced widespread cell service outages, internet. And surprisingly enough, I think that's probably the thing that disturbed people the most, was the inability to communicate with one another. But Cherokee fared well. They had some flooding, but just like everybody else, they experienced the outages. But we're fine, and Asheville is recovering. We still have a ways to go. There's still some people out there still in desperate need. Regardless of what the newspapers or the news stories say, we're still in a deep, deep state of trauma and recovery.
Thank you for sharing, Yona, and we're certainly keeping you and the Cherokee people and all of our neighbors in North Carolina in our prayers for all those affected regions of the recent hurricanes we've been dealing with. Father Garrick, would you like to ask a question?
I was reflecting on the conversation that Yona had with Dean, which triggered something came up in our conversation, and we expressed that you're getting to the sun behind the sun as a return to innocence, that Jan had invited us to return to innocence. And so a couple of us are in our old age, and we began to have a new appreciation for going through our second childhood, and that sense that we are transiting, that the very aging process itself is bringing us back to that innocence, of childhood, that we all of the stuff we accumulated is just being stripped away so we can get back to that innocence that we were basically born with. And the connectedness with all of life.
And I think, and that is, for me, being raised in, my father was a Southern Baptist preacher. He was raised in the boarding schools where they were force-fed Christianity. My father was in the boarding schools where his hair was cut and his name was changed, and he was part of the assimilation process. And in order to leave the mission, to leave the boarding school, you had to accept Jesus Christ as your Savior. So that was my father's escape, was saying okay to the plan. But the thing was that whenever the church sent them out to be missionaries, my father preached in Cherokee. Our Bibles were printed in the Cherokee language, our hymn books. We sang Amazing Grace, Nail at the Cross in the Cherokee language. So the overseers that would go into the church to make sure my dad was preaching the word according to the Bible, they didn't speak Cherokee. So my father would get up there and just reckon the Bible to life as we knew it. Hey, this Jesus guy, we didn't meet him till just a couple 100 years ago, but he's kind of like Jim Alaska, our chief of long ago, who was just a good man, widely misunderstood, just wanted to join everybody together. And that's how my dad would preach the word of the Bible. He would take it and he would talk about how, Jesus was an outcast, just like we were outcast in our own land, because we talked to birds and we lived in nature. And, Jesus was an outcast, wasn't allowed in the tabernacles because they thought he was less than, because he went into nature and he talked with birds and manna from heaven. So maybe Jesus was the first woo-woo new agey guy out there, So that's our return to an innocence of understanding that's not guided by theology. Mm-hmm. But we just live and flow with a balance of the energy that's greater than ourselves.
Thank you, Yona. There was an interesting synchronicity in the breakout room that I was a part of with Tom and Reagan, where we had all spoken about sacred experiences we had shared with an eagle in various parts of our journey. And especially an eagle appearing during a sacred ritual or particular auspicious time in our life journey. And I'm curious if you can talk a little bit more about the eagle or other birds or beings, and how that relates to what you were sharing about how the energy of prayer and of ceremony can ripple out into the more than human web of life.
Well, in our tradition, we're a matriarchal society. So I take after my mother. My mother was of the Bird Clan. And the Bird Clan people are wisdom keepers, are storytellers, and the keepers of our history. And so with us, the eagle has always been, the eagle was the one whenever the people would come out to offer their prayers, their salutations, and their hopes and dreams, and they would come out as a tribe. The eagle would come and to dance, and they would sing, and the eagle would dance. And while the eagle danced, it was scooping up the blessings and the prayers on its wings. And as the people sang, they would sing as the eagle flew toward the sun and beyond the sun to offer our prayers to the Creator. And that's why the Cherokee believe that the eagle's feathers are singed at the edges, because the eagle gives too so that we might be heard. So it flies so close to the sun that it has to give sacrifice, if you will, so that our prayers might be heard. And then the people continue to sing. And then in the last verse of the song, the eagle returns and lands upon the earth and again dances for the people, spreading the prayers and the blessings amongst the people. And so for us, that's how the eagle medicine comes to us. But I have also done eagle condor workshops with curanderos from South America, bringing in the condor understanding, the north-south eagle, condor eagle, and the joining of Heart Island and Turtle Island, and the synchronicities and the energetic connections that we have to the skies and stars. So the phoenix and all of these great birds that we hear of are all just representations of what each, again, we're all one indigenous tribe of the earth. We all come from somewhere. And each of our tribes and ancestors have a connection to a bird, an animal, or some kind of deity that guides us. So in my Cherokee tradition, being of the Bird Clan, woodpecker medicine is really strong with us, and the hummingbird is our family emblem, our family totem. And so it's the hummingbird represents being able to be in stillness and yet project beauty in that way, and to assert, to gather, to have that long bill of knowledge, to drink in knowledge, but also to reach extensively to share that knowledge as well. So that's what, to me, my hummingbird totem is to receive from the ancient future and to infuse into the ancient, from the ancient past to the ancient future.
Thank you, Yona. We'd love to hear from Grace.
Oh, yes. Hi. Thank you so much for your words this time. It's just been a beautiful hour. I'm fascinated by this connection between modern technology and our ancient need. You referenced GPS and Twitter and all these things, and I think that's so fascinating to think about. That actually this is a very old need of ours, to know where we're going, to find ways to communicate easily, to, I don't know, I love that's helps me deal with a lot of what we get so caught up in it, but to kind of anchor back in knowing that this is actually comes from probably a very deeply rooted need of us is kind of helpful. I don't know if you want to add any more to that, but I did want to just mention that was a remarkable connection for me.
Oh, well, that's something, we first started with my grandchildren. I have an 18-year-old granddaughter that doesn't know a life without computers. Most of my grandchildren, well, all of my grandchildren. And how I worked in California for 30 years with young people, and out there, whenever the casino scene started happening, the children I were working with, it became more and more difficult to get them to want to get an education, because when the casinos started, they started getting trust funds. And so a lot of these young children, when they turn 18 years old, were going to be millionaires. And so how do we, wanting them to get a college education, but college was never the focus. Again, not the regular ABCs. Our tenet is to share the energetic ABCs of life, of compassion and love and respect. So it was difficult to work with these young kids that had no interest in furthering their education, because they knew when they turned 18, they were going to get a lot of money. So I had to learn how to speak a different language. I had to learn what games were they playing, I love arcade games too. I grew up on Miss Pac-Man and Galaga and all these little gadget games back in the 80s. So it just occurred to me how, just like a lot of ministries, how do we speak the same language as our young people, and to immerse ourselves in it? So to immerse in technology. And that's where the idea for that story came from, of that connection of going into lodge and putting our energy into the earth, just like turning on your computer and everything starts to warm up and you reboot, and then you start to listen. You type in there, you meditate, you ask a question, and the wind and the birds start to sing, and maybe some coincidence happens. Maybe you're speaking of an eagle and one flies over. This is how you find how we feel that the internet was given to us in those moments, of how to bring it to more of a global awareness. And so when we were able to speak that language, the children took more of an interest in wanting to learn. And it opened them up for expansion, and as opposed to some teachers getting frustrated and giving up. So those are the things that I have learned to, this isn't a story that I knew 50 years ago, because there was no computers. There was no internet in which to reference this. So it's a good question of, how do we come up with these stories to relate to our children? It's a testament to how we evolve as a human society, and how we learn to communicate with that growth. You'll look in the Google dictionary and you find new words every year. They bring in a new word because it's the new word, and it's what our young people are speaking. So as elders, it's important for us to evolve in that language as well.
Thank you, Yona. Jay, we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Yona. This has really been a wonderful presentation for me. I've been thinking a lot about young people in particular and their search for a spiritual home. A lot of the traditional Christian communities often don't appeal as much to young people as maybe they once did. And I'm wondering, in your ministry, how you're finding this message of the earth as a spiritual home to resonate with young people in particular.
I'm finding it fairly easy to connect with the next generations. And when I say that, the 20ish, 30ish crowd, especially here in Asheville, North Carolina, where we have become somewhat of an energetic portal of transformation for people, I believe that because of technology, our young people are more spiritually evolved than I was when I was 20, 30 years old, just because of the exposure of the internet, to be able to explore their curiosities and to ask Google certain questions, and how they can just Google their ideas. But it's also dissolved some of the deeper learning that we get from actually reading the book and knowing the deeper history and the backstory of what we know to be truth. Our young people are just getting brief snapses of truth instead of reading all of War and Peace. They just buy a 10-page overall for class, and okay, it's about this and it's about this, without reading the emotion, without connecting with the depth of humanity. And if there's one drawback in our technology and computer technology and wisdom, I believe it's that it has taken its lesson. Our roots don't run as deep as they used to. And so whenever strong winds come, maybe we're not as rooted and we fall over and we're vulnerable, and we're maybe more vulnerable in this time because the airwaves are so accessible to different ideas. We're experiencing it in this election of stories, true or untrue, but are being put out there, and they are adding to the growth, whether we like it or not, whether it's accurate or not. It is part of the environment that is growing our next generation. So how do we come back to make it more organic? And do we return the more natural aspects of nature and connecting to silence and meditation and simplicity? So that's what we're trying to do, is to lessen all of these mental illnesses that are happening, that are being treated with psych medications. And how can we take the energy and medicine of earth and to calm the spirit of our next generation, so that we can be clear-minded, so that we can be coherent together in collective consciousness. And I feel that that's where we're going with our next generations, and how to educate and how to communicate with them.
I'd like you to respond to that. Like, I'm struck by the number of times you use energy in your talk. You talk about an energetic portal, and I'm sensing that that's where the energy comes from, more than the mind. We would say, I thought about this, I think about that. You're talking about the energy. So I'm just struck how often that term energy comes into your language, and the wisdom that it brings forth, as opposed to an over rational, approach to life.
Yeah, again, it's a, what is the destination? What is, it's an energy. It's just when do you know you're there? Or maybe you're there, but how do you maintain that awareness? And so thank you for that, Father Garrick. That is enlightening for me to hear.
Does anybody have any last comments or questions before we come to a close?
I just want to say that, again, I'm so honored to have come and shared time with you and shared some of my story, and in hopes to, again, amplify the message, not only the message that I have here to share, but to amplify the intention of which you're here and chose to be here this evening. And thank you so much for coming and participating and adding to the prophecy of my people in such a good way. So much gratitude to each and every one of you.
And deep gratitude to you for blessing us with your presence here, and for all of your ancestors, and for all those who you have brought into this beautiful space. We hope to see many of you next month on December 2nd for our next gathering with Mary Evelyn Tucker and John Grimm. But before we close, just one more note of deep gratitude and blessings to Yona for being here this evening.
So welcome.
Thank you.
Be well, everybody. Blessings to you all. Have a good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you.
You are welcome.